What's good? What's good? What's good? What's good? What's good? It's your boy, the good son. I hope you're good. Let's have some good conversation. I recently saw a stat online that read that 92% of all socio-economic problems are related to the absence of the male figure in the household. Some of the stats read that 63% of youth suicide are from fatherless homes. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists come from fatherless homes. Other stats included teenage pregnancy, dropouts in schools, gang violence, etc. And this just highlighted that to me that we are not just struggling to be men, but we are really failing to be men. And the reason why that is because a lot of men are suffering from a condition, and that condition is called confusion. Because the average male does not know who he is, why he is, where he is going, what society wants from him, and he doesn't even know what he wants. And because of this confusion, a lot of men are angry, frustrated, and depressed. Now, by nature, men have always been put in positions of authority, power, and leadership because of their authority, strength, and most importantly, good decision making. But now we can clearly see that men have become poor decision makers. And that has become the case because we don't have any sense of purpose, any sense of identity, and we've been misguided by our egos because we are trying to impress the wrong group of people. Now, it's the 21st century and it's tough, man. It's tough to be anyone, but it's even worse for women because women have become the chief victims of the poor decision making of men, and the lack of support from the male community to the female community has been shocking. So I've been going on my own self-love, self-healing process, and I've come to learn that the best form of apology is change behavior. And this year, we don't just need more retweets or more posts on Instagram, but we need men to change their behavior. Which leads us to today's topic, which is understanding the male ego. Now, primarily, a man makes decisions based on 4 pillars. 1 being the mind, which is based on logic. 2 being the heart, which is based on emotions. 3 being the penis, which is the carnal desire for sexual satisfaction. And the 4th being the ego, which simply put, the male ego solely exists to protect and enhance the alpha male status of a man. Now, if you don't know, the alpha male is the dominant male in a particular group, in a social or professional setting. The alpha male is a man's man. He's a warrior. He's a stand-up guy. He's the leader that other people look to for motivation, inspiration, and oftentimes protection as well. Now, in every group, we need an alpha male. Let it be in a family, in business, even when friends are going out for the night. Every situation requires an alpha male because, when an emergency hits, we need to know who is the person who has the last word, who the true leader is. Now, because of this innate desire to be the alpha male, the ego consistently influences the man to be competitive, consistently influences the man to impress and to show off. But the flaw of the ego is that it's not logical. It just desires to satisfy and impress their peer group, no matter who might be in that peer group, whether it be a gang and you're trying to be the top gangster with friends and you're trying to be the funniest person with family, or even worse these days where people are trying to impress strangers on the internet. The ego will do anything and everything in order to satisfy the peer group, because by impressing people, your status will raise higher and your ranking will grow in your desire to becoming the alpha male. Now, one very important thing to understand is that the biggest fear, a man's biggest fear, is a fear of not being needed. Now, when this fear or insecurity is threatened even in the slightest, the ego takes over and you see men making ridiculous decisions and choices in order to protect oneself. But let's continue and let's break it down. Gang culture. Gang culture is the biggest example of an ego-led organization. That's why we see people willing to be violent, to kill, in order to be seen as a valuable member and in order to become the top dog, the alpha male. Now, that does not only happen in the streets, it also happens socially and professionally as well. We see men sacrificing, spending time with their loved ones, to prove something to their friends. Whether you're with a group of guys and then your wife or your children call you and ask you to come home, but to prove to your friends that you are the alpha male, you find that person decides not to go home so that they can prove that at their household they are the alpha males. We see it in business, in politics. We see many men who are in positions of power who don't serve anything or anyone besides their own ego, who are not fighting for any cause besides their desire to be the top dogs. Of course, there will be benefits for those people's followers, but in the overall bigger scheme, in the bigger picture, we see the tragedy and the disaster that impacts the community. Let it be leaders like Hitler. Let it be systems like the apartheid systems. Now we even see it in churches where we see these false pastors who are using people's misguided beliefs in order to satisfy their own egos. Let's talk about physical abuse. I just want to start off by saying that women are genuinely amazing. Women are multi-talented and can do anything a man can do, but some way, somehow, men have just been put higher up in the hierarchy. And the two ways that men have been able to maintain control over women has been through authority and physicality. But as we have been evolving as a people, there has been some social changes. Now we see that power and authority are not only measured by position, but they're measured by popularity and finances. So now when people are looking for leaders, people are beginning to look for other qualities besides manhood. Now, in my father's era, being a man meant going to work, meant bringing home the bacon, building or buying a house, paying for the kids. But in today's time, that's all finished. You try to buy a house, the girl probably also is able to buy her own house. You try to get her a car, she probably has her own car, or even two. Single mothers have proven that they don't need a man to raise their children. She doesn't only bring home the bacon, she brings home the whole pig because she earns more than you. Now, in a man's mind, when a woman is doing more, either having more money, more fame, or being in a better position, as a man, you feel like, damn, she's stronger than me. And if she's stronger than me, then she doesn't need me. And then now the ego begins to feel threatened, and the ego fights to protect you and to gain your power back. And the only way to gain your power back is the one place that a woman cannot compete with a man, and that is physicality. And that is when a man becomes abusive. The ego will fight and fights to gain your power back. The ego says, I will slap her, I will beat her, to remind her that, hey, no matter how rich you may be, how popular you may be, you will never be this powerful. You will need this power on your side, and I am the alpha male. And in that way, women end up staying in their abusive relationships because they feel safer with their abuser because he has become alpha to her. Let's talk about sugar daddies and blessers. Ladies, I want to first relieve your anxiety and say that everyone is worthy of love regardless of your age. Your age is not the problem that men cheat and stop loving you. Simply put, older men go for younger women because they can no longer satisfy the women in their own age group, so they go where they feel needed again, and that's when they go for younger women. Because in our youth, men, we are energetic, we're able to put in the time to charm, and we're able to put in the effort because we see potential. But as we grow as a couple, the women are able to consistently show growth as opposed to men. Women become more responsible, more successful. The sexual appetite grows. Women start new hobbies and become more social. As men we become less attentive to our partners mentally, emotionally, sexually, and we generally become less adventurous. And because of this, we find that we are no longer able to impress or satisfy our women. And because of that, the ego once again feels threatened. So we go where we can feel needed and feel like man again. So we date younger women because it's easier to be a provider for a younger woman because she doesn't either have much or we have so much more. It's easier to be an authority figure to a younger person because we have so much more life experience and so many things to teach to younger women. And all these things make a man feel needed again, and the egos no longer feel threatened, and we feel safe. So we find ourselves in these relationships because of our ego-led decisions. And when it comes to cheating in general, simply put, cheating is a matter of choice. Cheating is a poor choice because it's made to feed our egos. There's no science to it. It's just greed. Every time a man has cheated, it's because he has wanted to. So don't feel guilty for a person who cheats because no one has ever died from not cheating. It's just a poor decision. And it's up to that person to go through their own self-introspection to find out why they keep making that poor decision. But, those are some of the things and how a man's ego influences them to make poor decisions. There was a couple of remedies, while I was sitting down, I was able to think about to help keep the ego in check. Firstly, knowing who God is. You see, understanding God reminds us that we as men are just blessed to be in the positions of being men. It's all grace. So we ought to be more humble and more responsible with our God-given authority. And it also reminds us that there are bigger consequences to our decisions. 2, as a man, you have to learn something. The late, great Dr. Miles Monroe gave a beautiful quote when he said that the cost of ignorance is always higher than the cost of knowledge. So stop being lazy and self-conscious. Put your head down and master something. Become a better decision maker for yourselves and for the community, because a good leader will always be needed. A good leader will always be appreciated. You won't need to chase appreciation from a woman half your age. If you're able to be a good decision maker, you'll always be needed. Don't say, I don't have a talent or I'm not good at anything. No. Go to someone who's doing something that you like and ask them to teach you. Go to the library. Go buy a book. Go to YouTube. Learn something. Grow yourself. Learn how to change a tire, how to cook, how to create something. Grow yourself as a man. Thirdly, surround yourself with a better peer group. This is not an easy one, but the reality is that as a man, you will always make decisions to satisfy your peer group. So at least surround yourself with a decent group of sane people so that even if you decide to impress them, there will be less damage. But this is such a big topic. There's so much more to talk about, but that's all the time that we have for today. So as per usual, do hit me up on the socials. Do hit me up in the comments. Let's continue the conversation. Otherwise, it's your boy, the good son. Stay focused. Let's have a great year. Peace.